Caution in here. The t-shirt says, watch out for the SI-EI column. It really sucks. You can get sucked in. The art of remote influencing is involved in your ability to almost get sucked in, but not quite. And so there's a lot of practice you need to do before you ever try your first remote influencing session. It can be dangerous. Getting sucked in can be extremely dangerous. Yes. Don't ever work the SI or EI column without a monitor until you learn how to do it, because the monitor is there to get you out. The one time in remote viewing that the monitor is allowed to take over the session is when you lose control of the session. And then the monitor is only allowed to take it over long enough to get you back in control. So that's the one exception to the prime directive, that the viewer is always in charge. When you get into the SI or EI column, what information comes through this column is information from the target person's mind. What is that person feeling? What is that person saying? And so on. As you tend to get sucked into that column more and more, instead of describing what that person is feeling and saying, you will start experiencing it yourself. There's a graduating degree here. Ever take two magnets, put them together like this, you know? At some point, the two of them snap together and there's nothing you can do to keep them apart. The SI column sucks in that manner. It's attractive, oh, it's really attractive, and all of a sudden, ka-whack. It's over. You know, you are sucked in. Anytime you work in this column, you detox. David was showing you the other day how he detoxes. He starts back where he went into the SI column and goes down that way. The standard method is to go from the bottom of the session upwards. Where you're most involved, go upwards, one impression at a time, and say, is that them or is that me? Get it out. And work your way back up to the point where you began in the SI or EI column. That's the proper method for detoxing. You ask the question, is that the target person's feeling or is that my feeling? Now what you've got to realize is that when you start detoxing, the answer is yes to both of those. And so you have to sit there and you have to say, but is that my normal feeling? Well, no. Axe murdering is not my normal feeling, you know. Maybe that's something I'm picking up from but right now I want to go axe people, you know. And, you know, you mentally access the wrong person and suddenly you start seeing how right it is to molest children or sell drugs or whatever. And you've got to work your way out of that. So you start with your last impression and you work your way back to the first impression you got when you went into the SI or EI column. Now, everybody I teach to detox that way, they go, okay, that's them, that's them, that's them, this is me, that's them. It's like the set aside. Those who've been through my course realize that there is a solid protocol for setting things aside. There is a solid protocol for detoxing. If you have a 10-page session and the last 3 pages are or after you went into the SI and EI column, I would say it should take you about twice the length of your session to detox. You go through it, you establish, you don't just, oh, that's them, this is me. No, you establish and you separate yourself from that person. And you separate yourself from that person completely before you go up one line more and do it again, okay? Most important to detox. This is not a toy. This is the real thing. and it has dangers, okay? Dangers of the SI-EI column: you can get sucked into the other person's feelings, emotions, their life paradigms, their moralities, their moods, their outlook on life. Anything in that other person's mind winds up in yours. You want to be careful. You can pick up personality traits which continue after the session ends. This is absolutely true. You don't detox once and somebody will wind up letting you know about it. You must detox after each session in which you access another person. One of our students had wanted to get sucked in. He wanted to feel it, you know. And another student brought in a target, which was of a man getting swept away in a flood and drowning. Well, the man, you know, the man was revived later, but the man didn't know at the time that the picture was taken that he was going to live. And so it was given to this student, and the student started getting sucked in, and he had been just badgering me and badgering me and badgering me. So I said, okay, I'm going to stand here and I'm going to stop it before it goes too far, but you asked for it, kid, you're going to get it. And I think, he cried for 2 days, I think it was. He knew that he was going to die in that session. And, you know, I use that, this is what is getting sucked in, you know. The normal method that people use is with a word. Quiet! Okay? Guess what's not going to work, okay? You want to send something that their subconscious, not their conscious mind, their subconscious mind can convey to the body. How about that? Get yourself a visual. Simple as that. By the same token, you want to upset someone. There are a lot of different pictures of horror, of discomfort, of fear, everything else. You transmit that picture to them and it will affect them. I guarantee it. I was showing this to a student once at Monroe. There was a person in another room. I'm not sure I'm remembering this correctly. And they said, how do I influence this other person? And I said, okay, well, was it make them scratch their ear? I think it was. And saying scratch your ear, it's going to have no effect. But to stand there and feel your ear itching, and pretty soon the woman in the other room reached up and did like that, you know. And you can cause these things. You want to send a subliminal message that subconscious mind can put into that person's body. And sometimes your success in doing the RI, you just momentarily think, that worked, and you let your guard down and you get sucked in. Yeah, it can happen, you bet. Okay, any questions so far? I want questions all the way through this because I don't want to go past anything. Yeah. I knew somebody was going to bring that up. No, there is an active thing you do in the EI column that lets you, it's not your intent. There's an active step that you can take in the EI column which can turn it into a two-way street, and you can actually put information in instead of just getting it out. I'll cover that in a few minutes. Yes. If you're a beginner, does it hold here? No, by the time you get to this, I hope you're not going to jump into this, like the Magician's Apprentice. Don't go home this weekend and try that this week on somebody, okay? Learn to work the stage 4. Learn to remote view in stage 4. Learn to remote view the SI column, EI column, without getting sucked in. What I'm giving you here is not something you should be trying this evening, okay? So by the time you learn to stay in the SI column and keep that separation, then, go ahead and try some of this stuff. Yeah. Any information that you get from the EI column or the SI column, you can put into it with generally about equal effectiveness. So if you are strong at getting visuals, or that person is strong at sending you visuals, so you get into the SI column and what you're getting from that person is all visual, hey, send back a visual. That's the way they think, okay? By the same token, you know, if visuals are your forte, then sure, use that. That's your biggest hammer, you know, hit the nail with it, yeah. Okay, if you're remote influencing and you get sucked in, absolutely. Don't sit there and hurt the person. I mean, you're only hurting yourself. Well, you're also hurting that other person, but you're sitting there hurting yourself. Yeah, if you realize you get sucked into that person, treat them nice. You know, because if you don't, you're going to hurt yourself. Yeah. EI and SI are the same column. EI is Incoterms. SI is what we use. Ideally, I wouldn't try any beginning remote influencing without a monitor.
Right. Okay.
If you're sitting there at home alone, I mean, the magician's apprentice syndrome has gotten more people in more trouble than, you know. If you're sitting there at home alone, you don't have a monitor to work with, don't try this, okay? Don't do it, yeah.
That's the first fail-safe.
That's the first fail-safe, yeah. Have a buddy, do the buddy system, okay? Have a buddy handy. The basics. You acquire a person lightly. Stress on lightly, okay? Because you're going into that SI or EI column and you just lightly access the person and you start getting some information. Go ahead and get the information. The information may not be important to you, or it may not be important to the session, but the information you're going to get is important to that person. You know, the greatest way to be a good conversationalist is to learn to listen. That rule holds true here. Let the person talk. Let them tell you anything they want to get off their mind. Just let them go. Write it down. Let them know that you're getting this, okay? And access them lightly, set up that conversation. Then move to the proper time, event, and so on. It comes as a surprise to many people that remote influencing treats time the same way as it does space, just like CRV does. Are you limited to remote influencing somebody in the present time? No. You can sit down and do a session today which will not influence them to do something for a month. You can also influence the past. We'll get into that in a few minutes. Acquire more deeply. Get into this conversation. Get the conversation going deep. Sympathize with that person, okay? Agree with that person. Unite yourself with that person. Get into a deeper conversation. When you do, you'll start obtaining feelings and emotions and so on. Here's where you have to start really being careful. Because if you start agreeing emotionally and so on, then that's the beginning of getting sucked in, yeah. The question is, if you set something up to happen with a target person a month from now, and then you go watch to see if it happens, are you setting up a pollution? The answer is yes, and you're also using that pollution as a tool to cause it to happen. So everything in CRV is usable some way or another, even the pollution. And here's an example of where you can use the pollution to get the end result that you want. You know how in a conversation you say, you know, you sympathize with the person and all that, and then you start moving your own feelings into it to try to persuade them to be a little bit different or to change their attitude or to change their mind. So what you do right here. I mean, this is simple techniques of conversation. You can also add your own physical sensations. Yeah. The question is, if you do this when you have the flu or diarrhea or something, is that going to have an effect? Probably so. Yeah. And especially if you want it to. David? Yeah. David? Absolutely. This is still a two-way street. When you put something in, you wait to see if they feel it. It's like a conversation. You wait to see if they feel it. You wait to get the information back. Is that now the way they feel? So the whole time you're doing RI, and then you let them converse. You do it, you let them converse. Many people think you just go in and give a bunch of commands and that's it. No, it's a conversation. It's a two-way street, and it's back and forth. You only spend half of your time in RI work RIing. The rest of the time you spend listening, okay, to see if it works, to see what the reaction is, and so forth. You want that person to be excited? Get excited. Okay. What's the best way to make somebody feel down? Go around them all the time going, and it's contagious. You do the same thing here. These are the simple mechanics of human interaction. That's really all they are.
Do you also write it down?
The more physical you can get, often the better it helps. Yeah. So writing it down, absolutely. Yeah, that will help. Also, being a database freak, when you're doing the session, you want to write down the information you're putting in so that you'll have a record of it. You can database it, and you can analyze it later to see how well it worked. So yes, definitely, when you're putting in information to the other person, write it down, physically write it down, make it a physical act, and that gives you a record of it. Okay, get out of there. As soon as you've done what you want to do, get out of there. Detox. When you write session end, make sure you mean it. You bet. Yeah.
What?
A sense of humor.
Homer Simpson.
Yeah. The techniques would generally be the same. Now, to be honest about it, that's a logical deduction. I have worked this on an entire group within a room, but like a demographic, I've never even tried, so really the answer is I don't know. But my experience, I have maybe 2 or 3 times worked on an entire group within a room, and it's had the effect that was desired, but almost 99% of everything I've done this way has been on an individual. You can detox after you end session. You can also detox if you move to another part of the target. Let's say you have been targeted with some political leader. Okay, then you want to go influence that political leader to do something, and then you say, okay, now move 1 week forward in time and describe the activities going on in that country, something like that. Well, that's the time to detox from that leader. Okay, and then also at the end of the session, I would detox again just to be sure.